Welcome to tutorial 1 in the DirectX tutorial series. Basically this tutorial you could think of as tutorial 0 because it's just going to cover Win32 basics. So how to create a window mainly. So to start, open up Visual Studio 2010 or 2008. Visual Studio 2012 with Windows 8 Metro. I'm pretty sure that this code that we're going to write isn't really going to work as well or work at all on Metro because Windows 8 is a lot different with its app-based system. So basically, Visual Studio 2010. We're going to create a new project. It's going to be an empty project. And we're going to name it, you can name it wherever you want. I'm going to name it tutorial project. And once that loads up, we're going to create a C++ file, a source file, call it winmain. And before we do anything, we're going to have to include Windows header file, of course, because we're using Windows API. And what we also might want to do is if you want to speed up the basically the build time of your application and you don't plan on using WinSockets or cryptography or other types of things included within the Windows header, you can define this at the top, which basically trims down the API and only gives you what's essential for what we're doing. So to start, this is the main entry point of your application, basically the main method, and it takes 4 parameters, sorry, slip of the tongue. Now, these 4 parameters, let me explain them. This is just the handle to the instance of the application. The previous instance, it's kind of deprecated now. It's not really necessary or used, because if you wanted, usually you'd want a previous instance of your application to check to see if the application's already running, but now you can do that with Mutexes to make it so a user can't like triple click on the icon and accidentally open up 2 instances. You can throw an error or like a message on screen, which you may see happen with like some video games especially. You'll see it tell you that there's already an instance of it running. Now this is basically just the command line. Every application has some form of command line. You see this with Java as well, with the string array args. That's pretty much the essential command line. Now this last parameter, integer parameter, is basically just how the window should be shown. If you look this up on the API, you'll find a big list of already predefined sort of constants for this, but yeah. So this is the entry point, and for now we're just going to return 1 and see if this runs, see if we did everything right, and there we go, everything runs. So what's entailed in creating a window and displaying it is basically 2 things. You need the window itself, a method to sort of initialize a window, and then you need a method for the message procedure. Basically, a window on Windows needs a way to receive messages, or it needs to have some defined way of, or it needs to know basically what to do when it receives those messages. So let's say I click this X button right up here. A message is sent to this window or received by the window, and it knows because of a procedure function what to do. In this case, close. Basically, quit. So there's 2 forward declarations we're going to have to make. One is going to be a bool, which is going to take 2 things, an H instance and an integer. And then the second one is going to be the message procedure, which takes a H window, which is basically a handle to a window, an unsigned integer, a W param variable, L param variable. And I'll explain these more in detail when we get to them. We're also going to need some constants. Basically, just for the purpose of this tutorial, we're going to want basically an int for the width of the window. Well, since they're constants, we should make them constants. And I'll just set it to 800. So there we go, we get these 2 constants. Now, let's tackle the init main window function, or initialize main window function first, because this one tends to be the bulkiest of the 2. Now to start, we need a structure, some form of structure that will basically define how our window should be or displayed, basically what our window is like, in a sense. So this structure is going to be called a window class EX. There's window class as well. There's these 2. This one is basically there's less junk. This one's more defined. Either one's perfectly okay. Doesn't really matter. So yeah. For this tutorial, we're just gonna use this one. Now we have to set the size, basically the byte size, and we're just gonna set that to the size of the structure. Next, we're going to want to set the style. Now for a window class, there's multiple style defines, basically prefixed by CS, class style, underscore, and then the name of the style. We're just focused on 2, basically called H redraw and V redraw, which basically these tell the window that when it's resized in the horizontal or vertical direction, it should essentially redraw. That's basically what it's saying. So next we're going to want to get rid of these. This is just saying for the class how much extra bytes we want or data, which we don't want any. We don't really care. Same thing for the window. We don't really care. This right here, window proc, that's this message proc, message procedure. That's what we want to give that. Now next, we're going to want to fill in the H instance, or the handle to the instance, and that's just going to be equal to this parameter. And now, since we've covered most of it, now we're just going to load in icons. These can either be set to null, or you can actually load in an icon. Now Windows has We're just going to pass null for the H instance. Windows has some built-in icons and cursors. If you look at the API, just do a quick load icon, Windows API, Google search. You'll find a table that basically has a bunch. There's, for example, there's a standard application icon. There's an alert icon, like if something really bad happens with a program. There's a question mark icon, a caution icon. You get the point. So these are prefixed by IDI, which is like ID icon. And for this one, we're just going to do application. And for H cursor, we're going to do load cursor method, IDC, ID cursor, arrow. Same thing with the cursor. There's a bunch of predefined cursors. There's a cursor, there's the normal cursor, like this one that I'm moving around. There's a cursor that just points straight up. There's a cursor for all the cardinal direction that has all cardinal directions displayed. There's even a crosshair cursor. Now, for the background, we're just going to cast to an H brush using this method, get stock object, what's called null brush. Basically, if you look up this function as well, get stock object, you'll find a list of about 4, 5, maybe 6 predefined brushes. There's null brush, black brush, gray brush, and a couple other special brushes. What this does, this is what it'll just paint the background to when you first display the window. This really isn't going to matter once we have DirectX running. Okay, so to continue, we're going to want 2 more things filled in. The class name, you can set this to whatever you want. I'm just going to call it tutorial class name. And the menu name, which we're just going to set to null. And then finally, the small icon, we're going to set to, in this case, Win logo. And we're done. Now, once we have this structure filled out, we're going to want to actually register it. So to do that, we call this method called register class ex, and we pass it the pointer reference to that structure. And if that fails, we're just going to return false. So now this is done. Basically, that's that. Register. So now for the next part, we're going to have to actually create a window. Now to do this, you may be asking, if we're going to create a window, how do we do that? Well, first you need a handle to a window, basically one of these. So again, another one of these constants. Well, it's not really a constant. It's just a global variable. We're going to create a handle to a window, set it to null to start. Just make it global, just for the purpose of this tutorial. We're going to set that to this method called create window. Now, create window, if you see, takes in quite a few parameters, one of which is the class name. The window class name that we put up here should be the same as this. So if you remember what you named it, just put that in. Now the window name is the caption. So right here, how it says tutorial project, Microsoft Visual Studio, that's what this is. So we can put in, I'm just going to put in tutorial window, and that's going to display at the top. Now for the style, for the window style, there are quite a few styles. They're prefixed by WS. underscore, and then the style you want. There's overlapped window, which is basically just the standard, which contains a bunch of different window styles together. Overlapped, WS caption, system menu, etc. What we're going to do is we're going to do overlapped. We're going to give it system menu, and we're going to give it caption. So that's what we're going to have for that. Now the next thing is the X and Y. Now X and Y is the position of the window, the top left hand corner. Now if we could just give this 0, 0 and it'll display right up here, but that's kind of lame, and usually applications will display in the center. So to do this, you're going to want to use a method called getSystemMetrics, and what this will do is you pass in two predefined values called prefix by SM system metrics called CX screen. This will return basically the width of the screen, your display. Mine is 1600 at the moment, I believe, width, and we divide that by 2, and then subtract from that our width divided by 2. That will make it so it's now centered in the middle of the screen width-wise. And now we're going to do that again to just center it height-wise. Press in CY screen. This gets the height of your display. There you go. So now it should be centered. Now for the width, just pass in width, height, pass in height. For the window parent, we don't want this application isn't going to be a child of any parent or any parent window, so we're just going to pass in H window null, and same thing with H menu null. H instance is of course going to be that instance that we had as a parameter. And now for L param, we're just going to call cast LP void pointer null. And there you go. No errors, nothing. So create window. And now we need to check if the window exists. If it doesn't, then we're going to return false. And then finally, we're going to show the window using that ncmd show, and then return true. So there you go. That is the init main window function. So now we have this all down. We're gonna handle the message procedure function, which takes in H window, an unsigned integer message, a W param, L param, L param. So for this message procedure function, what we're going to do is we're going to make a switch statement on that unsigned integer message, and basically we're going to check what is actually in that message. So in the case that that message is a WM destroy message, so if the window received a destroy message, such as when I click this X button on this application, we're going to want to send to it the quit message, return 0. So we're going to want to quit out of the application, have the application close itself. Now, that's one way. That's the main way of making sure an application closes itself if it ever receives that destroy message. Now, another way is we can check for a Windows message character, and basically this is sent anytime a character is received by the window character message, which is whenever you hit like a key on the keyboard. So we're going to switch, do another switch statement within this on the W param, which holds that virtual key. And in the case that that virtual key is escape, we're going to do the same thing and return 0, and then return 0. And at the end, we're going to want to return def window procedure, and then give it those parameters. Okay, so now our message procedure function is complete. And the last thing we're going to want to do is handle the main message function. Now, to start, we're going to want to initialize the window. And to do that, we're just going to use that method that we made. So init main window, we're going to pass it that H instance, the cmd show, and if that returns false, in any case, we're just going to return 1. Now, for the message loop, we're going to need a message, and we're going to need to create a while loop. Now, the while loop is basically the application loop. The application does not exist or display itself unless this while loop is running. Otherwise, if the while loop is broken, then the application quits and it's over. So to do this, we're going to check while the quit message, which is sent when the application is about to destroy itself, doesn't equal message.message. We're going to check using peak message, which peak message basically checks for messages received by the window, and it'll we're going to remove those. We're going to basically translate, then dispatch those messages, and also remove them from a stack. We're not going to keep the messages in existence if we're only going to want to receive them once. So we're just going to pass null for that, 0, 0 for the filters, and for this we're going to want to do PM remove, peak message remove, because we want to remove messages after we receive them. Translate message, this function basically what this will do is it will translate any virtual key messages sent to the window, and dispatch message basically just sends those out. And then finally, once this breaks, if it ever breaks, we're going to want to cast message.wparam and return it as that integer type at the end, and then we're done. This is the main message loop, and there you go. So this, if we run it, moment of truth, build succeed, and there you go. You should be seeing a window pop up on screen and display. And if you click this, it should close. Also, if you click escape, it should close. So that's basically the basics of creating a window in Win32. You just create the initialize the main window function, the message procedure, this main message loop, this window function, message procedure, and you're done. So I hope you found this tutorial helpful. I'll be back soon with the first actual DirectX framework tutorial, all of which is done from scratch, no using some stupid library that someone else built to make it easier for you. No, this is just straight up C++ DirectX. Thanks for watching.